Hello there. You are listening to Revenue Insights. Today is a little bit of a medley episode. It pairs rather nicely, actually, if I do say so myself, with the 2024 B2B Sales Benchmarks report that we released a few weeks ago. If you haven't seen it, I'll put a link in the show notes. Something that the community has been asking for over the past 12 months is deeper insight into what top performers are doing that their peers aren't. So alongside the analysis that led to the report, I've also been asking folks on this podcast over the past few months what their top performers are doing. So we've pulled together all of their responses, and unsurprisingly, there's a few key themes you're about to hear that are consistent across both. Enjoy. Your sales team, how do you identify what is working from your top performers and then understand what they are doing to be able to, in an ideal world, replicate that for everyone else?
Yeah. And it's the worst is a lot of times your top performer is that lone wolf personality where they've been left alone a lot because they're great. So they don't maybe have the best data. They don't have the best hygiene. And so you're trying to figure out why this person is so good at what they do. And you can't really put your finger on it. So what I found is a lot of times you kind of have to ignore that person because they're not going to give you much insights. Plus, you probably don't want to recreate them. So I look at my A players that I can recreate. I want to see the ones that are hitting their quota consistently, people who are following the system that we've prescribed, or at least following it to a point where I can track what they're doing. And then I take a look at a lot of things. Typically, I found that the ones that are doing well is replicating how do they find so many opportunities, because that's going to be your top thing. You can close half of your opportunities, but if you're only getting a couple a month, then you're still going to fail. You can close them very quickly at a very high average sales price, but if you're only closing one or two, you're going to fail. So really, how are they generating opportunities? And I just gave a presentation at my SKO about this around creating that snowball. The thing that I'm finding is the reps that do really well, they're typically really good at creating that snowball of past close loss people, demos that they've done in the past that haven't gone well, people they've met at events, different places that they keep in touch with, and they're really good at that prospecting. So they're getting SDR sets if you have an SDR team. They're prospecting net new, which is the grind that everybody needs to do, but they're also keeping that backlog of people warm. And I tell reps that there's this holy grail after a while. It takes work, but there's a holy grail where every month you just have people showing up going, hey, it's time. It's right. I'm ready. Thanks for talking to me for I'm ready to go. And then they just get these sales. So it's like, why are these reps always starting out? Watch your top reps and see how they pace. They'll always start out stronger than the rest because it's rare to find a good rep that's closes all their stuff at the end of the month or in the quarter. You'll see that they pace pretty well. And I look at those and I look at the opportunities that they've closed early in the month, and it's clear they have a lot of activity on them. Typically, that's what I see. It's not necessarily the one call closes. It does happen, but it's the ones that have nurtured that pipeline that they have. And that's the consistency that I can go back and I can teach the rest of the reps, or I can help sales enablement teach them if you have a team like that, of here's how to be consistent, here's how to build a pipeline, because that is going to make or break your sales career. And that's the top reps. I'm always seeing that they have enough feedstock. They have enough people to talk to. And even the really good ones, everybody has heard about the rep that you listen to their calls, or their manager listens to their call. They're like, they're so good on the phones. They're so good, but I don't know what's going on. 99 out of 100, it's opportunities created. They need to figure out how to prospect, figure out how to get that snowball rolling down the mountain, getting that backlog of people. And that is something that you can recreate in other reps because they can see that pattern and they can recreate it. The lone wolf, which a lot of times is your top rep, I don't know, you just can't recreate that. They're doing something else. Let them be and work on what you can help the masses do.
Along a similar vein to what we've been talking about, which is I guess, if I were to summarize it, we're talking about how to be a more effective seller or actually a more effective partner to a buyer. Within your organization, what would you say separates the top performers from the average performers? And I'm talking specifically from a sales perspective here.
I think that would be a quick answer to you. Our top performers, hands down, can supplement what the organization produces through marketing sourced leads. And they can layer in 20 to 30% of their annual booked revenue through self-source. And that those percentages are going to vary depending on the organization. But at ours, the handshake I have, or the napkin math with our chief marketing officer is, 70 to 80% of what we book in a year is going to come directly from some marketing channel. And then I have a very open dialogue with our AEs too on, hey, we did not create plans for you to get to 100% off of marketing source. We're very open about that. That if you want to go get those, get the attainment bonuses, get into the best accelerators we have, unless you're going to convert at just extreme rates, which is a strategy, but what we would posit as the more attainable strategy is layer in great conversion with marketing source with self-sourcing. And we have some specific ways that we direct them to do that in terms of the accounts that they're calling into. But I think that would probably be the number one thing that I see separating is that the supplementation of marketing source with deals that they're originating on their own.
What would you say differentiates your top performing sellers compared to some of the others that you're trying to get kind of above the waterline?
So I think it's really that idea of slowing down, right? So I was on with a couple of calls today with my sales team, and one of them put it beautifully and said, basically, I'm going to slow us down here. And then he went into really taking the time to understand the need and the why, rather than rushing to the immediate ask, which is very tempting to do because you said you needed this thing and I know I can deliver this thing. But in building that larger opportunity and discussion, we're really understanding the broader impact that we can have, where it's going to add value, and crafting the right solution. Because keep in mind, we've been around for over 40 years. A lot of companies, we're very lucky, come to us and think they know what they want with us. And we can normally do that. But there's usually a much larger opportunity to add value as well, based on what they're trying to achieve, based on areas they don't even know we can help on because we've changed over those 40 odd years. And so I think that's a big part of the premise there.
What would one book be that you recommend to other revenue leaders?
It's really around story. And I've written a book on story. I don't want to be self-serving and just promote my book, but I just want to quickly go on Amazon. It's a book that really impacted me, and it's called Wired for Story. I think it's Lisa Cron. I just want to make sure I get the author right. But I know it's called, Lisa Cron. I was close. Okay. Cron. The book is called Wired for Story. And when I read this book, it really had a big impact on me. Just understanding the sort of fundamental ways we are, as human beings, are wired to tell stories, to listen to stories. And it had a big impact on me writing my book, which is Heroes, Villains, and the Thrill of Professional Selling, where I take this whole concept of story and break it down for professional sellers, and how this is our secret weapon. This is our magic wand to understand the power of story. And the best salespeople, just intuitively by nature, are great storytellers. That's one thing we noticed. The top performing salespeople, they tell stories. But generally when I train them, they didn't realize there's an actual structure to this. There's a science behind this. And there's also part of it is not just telling stories, it's listening and discovering the stories so that when we tell our stories, they actually fit. But I would say Lisa Cron, her book, Wired for Story, had a big impact on me. And then obviously for professional sellers in particular, I would recommend my book, Heroes, Villains, and the Thrill of Professional Selling. Yeah. And it goes into all these things that we've been talking in more detail.
I'm interested perhaps to dig into a little bit more around your philosophy. You were mentioning there taking an approach that's genuine and caring and helpful. And that's something that resonates it's come up on the podcast quite a lot recently. Almost this move away from like efficiency, like treating sales almost as like a machine that can be, for want of a better word, predictable. And we put more in at the top of the machine, it churns more out the end. Could you speak a bit more to your philosophy specifically, and how kind of that experience is kind of carried through into your career?
Sure, you bet. So my general philosophy is some of the things I just talked about. I mean, selling, so people ask me sometimes, like, if you could someone asked me this a couple weeks ago, if you could wave a magic wand over the world of business, like, what would you change? And my answer was, I would completely reset what people think sales is about. Because so often customers and salespeople go through this awkward phase when we're just trying to figure out, do we trust each other? And, and it's something that as sellers, we need to figure out how to overcome. It's a waste of time for customers because they're trying to figure out, who should I trust? Who can I really listen to? And so really, if you think about that, I mean, my mission and goal in life is to kind of change the world of sales and to get people to look at, what a seller, I think of selling as the word has all these connotations. Like, I'm in sales, I'm selling, as though it's something I'm doing to somebody. And that's the part that I think is an error as a mindset. And really, to do it well, you've got to be helping a customer make a decision. We're more in the art of, how do I enable people to make decisions with confidence? So I would say, like, overall, like, that's kind of my philosophy. And what I find is, and this is what drove me to, doing the concept of what I call selling with simplicity, leading with simplicity, growing with simplicity, that when you apply these simple concepts, that they can help people sell better, they can help companies grow faster. And to me, most importantly, we can create a better experience for our customers in working with us. Now, I want to touch on one of the points you mentioned. First of all, I am a deep and big believer in the use of technology, finding efficiencies, using technology, using data. All these things, they're wildly important, but they need to be kind of they can't be the foundation of what your sales experience is about. They enable the experience you bring to customers, which has got to be driven by being genuine, wanting to help, being confident in how you carry yourself, being an expert at what you do, using technology to guide people through decisions to help them get to the right answers all on their own, and organizing our time effectively so that we can make the greatest impact. And a lot of those things are little tidbits that I talk about very deeply in my keynote speech. But there's an important marriage of technology and how you just provide a great, genuine customer experience.
I was actually trying to pull from our numbers from our benchmark report. I think the win rate last quarter on average, which is taken across all industries that we're looking at, was somewhere around about 28%. So it's the classic Pareto principle at work yet again. So I'm curious then. You mentioned about the diligence that you put into disqualifying deals. What does good qualification look like then?
Yeah, good question. So good qualification is, you need to understand what good is. What is a great customer, right? And let's define what is a great customer. Well, it's somebody who you can help with whatever it is that you do. Let's say you do a service, tech, whatever, so you can solve a problem that they have. Well, one, the problem's got to exist. What is that problem? Can you quantify that problem? Do they value you solving that problem? And you can use whatever sales acronym that you want to do this, right? I'm not a fan of BANT. Some people use BANT. It could be MedPick, whatever. But you need to have a process for qualifying your deals. Now, if you do something highly transactional, maybe you don't need to as much, or maybe as much as people hate BANT and kind of poop all over BANT on social media, if you have a highly transactional sell with like a 2-week sales cycle, BANT's not that bad as a criteria, qualification criteria. So I don't care which one you pick. You need to pick one, and you need to pick the one that's most relevant based on what your sales process and stages look like, and follow it. The problem is most sellers don't follow it. So frontline managers, sales leaders, founders, whoever is leading the sales team, needs to be diligent in making sure that they are, that it is a hard rule that those things need to be followed and updated in the CRM. Because if that's not happening, then everything's broken and it all falls apart and nothing works. So that's number one, making sure that you have that, understanding what a good customer looks like, and then building out that criteria, and then making sure that it's followed throughout the sales process. And so if you do that, you have good exit criteria, meaning what gets a deal from stage 1 to stage 2. Well, this needs to happen, right? We need to quantify the pain, or we need to know who the economic buyer is to get from 2 to 3. Like whatever the case is, have all of that mapped out. So it's not something that is questioned or unsure in your sales process. So building that out, defining it, mapping it out in whatever CRM that you use, and making sure that it's followed. And to I mentioned we close it at 87%, but what I didn't say is we also disqualify 62% of our deals. So more than half of the people that we have a discovery call with, we disqualify early. So disqualifying is very important to increasing win rate, and disqualifying early, because if you're not disqualifying early, then that means your sellers are spending way too much time with people that are never going to close or never even become opportunities.
Now, something that you were touching on earlier around relationships is such an interesting one to me, because and I'd love to get your perspective on it. Like relationships from a sales perspective it's a given. Everyone knows that a quality relationship can be, the thing that unlocks a deal, or a recurring revenue over time. They're so incredibly important, but they're also very hard to control, right? To your point that you made earlier, there's no way really of being able to understand that relationship or to make it predictable in any way. So I'm very curious to understand from perhaps from your experience, and certainly how you're working with your team now, how you go about ensuring that you are multi-threading deals and ultimately building better relationships with your client. Is that something that you can that you're doing via training and really like foundational sales training, or is it something that you can measure against and actually take more of a data-driven approach to?
Yeah, it's definitely both. So we're intentionally starting with a multi-threaded approach. We're going account-based to the organizations that we want to have a relationship with. We never begin with a single touch point. There's always going to be multiple people that we're reaching out to that are all key stakeholders typically in a strategic engagement with the arbingers, to whether it's learning and development professionals, strategic human resources leaders, talent management, whether that's in the HR form, or individual managers of frontline people, even employee relations, public relations, legal teams. All of these folks are impacted by the kind of problems that we try to solve. And so we make it a point that our top of funnel, like our SDR team, is always finding multiple points of contact within the organization that they approach cohesively. And then as we kind of reach that critical mass of, there's some consensus around these problems that we want to solve that they've acknowledged, that's when we consider our opportunities really qualified. Without consensus, we don't think that they're qualified, because one person wanting something isn't the same as an organization deciding that they need something and putting a lot of prioritization and momentum behind it. And so we begin with that. We do train a lot on this. And one of the things that we train is actually more of a homegrown model. One of the Arbinger Institute's kind of philosophies is called the influence pyramid. And we use it as kind of our structure for our sales process as well, which I really love, and we've embraced and brought a lot of our best practices and aligning with that. But it's this philosophy that if I want to influence someone, I have to be doing that first by seeing them fully as a person. So I can't just assume that I need an HR person to agree, otherwise the deal's not going to get done. So I got to talk to the HR person. That can't be on my approach. It's got to be, look, I know what this person's name is. This is Sam Johnson. They're the HR leader. This is what they think about every day. This is their team. This is what they're surrounded by. This is where they came from. I need to have that level of understanding so that I can see them and imagine what it's like to be them. Then if I want to engage this person, the next level up on the pyramid, and again, it's less time as I go up, but hopefully, I'm doing it well. It's who are they influenced by, right? Like, where are they going for information? Who do they trust already? I got to connect to those people too, whether it's in the organization or a community they're a part of. And I need to do that because if I want to have an influence over them, I got to go where influence already exists for them. And only then can I build a relationship. But I don't build a relationship through telling them things or correcting their mistakes or showing them where they're wrong, which is unfortunately, I think, where most of us spend time in relationships. I've got to build a relationship by listening and learning and experiencing what it's like to be them and seeing that. And then as I spend enough time building that trusted relationship by just hearing them, giving them the place to speak and for me to listen and actually caring enough about them that they're willing to share that, only then are they open to any kind of teaching or invitations that I would give. And so we try to teach our team that for every new thing they're asking someone to do or change, there's like 9 times that amount of effort or time allocated to just seeing and understanding that person as an individual person. So we spend a lot of time with our team teaching them how to be, first and foremost, considerate human beings, because people sense that. It's like, Lee, if I'm a person trying to get something from you, no matter what I say, that's where I'm at. You can see that and sense that. And people do. So if I'm coming to you trying to sell you something, no matter what I say or do, that's going to be observed. But if my intent really is, Lee, to help you as a person and to be a positive impact in your life, no matter what I say or do, they're also going to sense that as well. And they're going to be far more receptive to being influenced. And so we teach that and we help our team embrace that as part of our process.